Light the beam, because it's time for Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, the People's Champ, Tim Keck. And today, I'm fired up once again because it is time to talk about another X-Men movie. Today, we're talking X3, The Last Stand.
Kevin, this movie sucks.
You said this was your favorite of the X-Men movies last week.
Part of me loves it, and the other part of me, I recognize that it is a terrible movie. As a kid, I think I just wanted to see some shiny stuff. We've talked a lot about the first X-Men movie, the second X2, and how there's all these subtle themes, and how you can watch that movie and just be like, oh, this is just an action movie, and we don't have to worry about any of this stuff. And in this one, they just beat you over the head with these ideas they're trying to get across to the detriment of all of the characters. There's like no compelling internal struggles going on aside from just there's the Dark Phoenix. There's the idea of the mutant cure, and just they half-ass both ideas, I think. And it's very unsatisfying in comparison to the other two.
Hold on. That's wild, because my whole take on this is that they went too far in on the action and they didn't care about the actual messaging of the movie whatsoever. We had completely opposite takeaways from the same thing.
Well, I think the very idea of the cure is a meta enough problem that is used instead of, mapping it onto like a coming out conversation with your parents, or mapping it onto Martin Luther King Jr. Instead, they just go with the cure, which is a very complex, complicated thing. And I think they approach it in a very blunt, uninteresting way. It could be way more interesting. It could be fascinating. I mean, there's a scene where Beast, who is covered in blue fur, goes to talk to the mutant who is generating his blood, has this thing that turns off mutant powers in it. He reaches a hand towards the kid, and all of the blue fur on his hand disappears, and it retreats up his arm, and he's got a normal human hand. And this should have been like the most traumatizing moment of this character's life. Yeah. And he's just like, you got a gift, and he bounces. And he's, there's no debate. We're not even debating, is Beast going to take the cure? No, there's no thought of that. There's no like conversation there. There's no depth to this thing. And then also they're doing Dark Phoenix, which could be its own character thing on its own. I don't hate the way they took it, but I hate the way they landed that plane. And I don't know. So I think you're right. I think all of the subtext is gone, but I do think all of that was just funneled into this cure idea, But you think there was just no. What was your take?
Oh, just that. Yeah, they didn't work on making it have any kind of applicable message to the real world at all. It's just it's exactly like you said. They just leaned into the in-universe ramifications of this cure. That was the scene with Beast's hand was the first scene that made me realize that there wasn't any bigger subtext in this movie, because as soon as the fur peeled off Beast's hand, I was like, hold on, this doesn't map with either of our previous subtexts that we're using. Like, we were talking about how it was like civil rights in the first movie and like LGBTQ rights in the second movie. And it's like, the Beast's hand is reaching out, and let's just say that it's like Beast was a gay man and he reaches his hand out and it's like, wait a minute, my hand doesn't feel gay anymore. Like, it just doesn't, like, it doesn't map to anything. I think for the X-Men to really be like hitting their heights, like to be as interesting as they possibly can be, there has to be some kind of a deeper meaning. It's like the same way we talk about action scenes, right? You can have action scenes in movies. You can have really cool action scenes in movies, but the action scenes in movies that are the coolest is when there's also some sort of representation of the story being told in that action. Like, if the things that people are doing are representative of the greater story, it's just going to hit a lot harder. Like, there's no depth to it the way it is in this movie. This movie just feels like a first draft that got rushed into production. And I feel like the first two movies were so strong. I feel like if they'd worked on this movie a little bit longer, maybe it could have been good.
This feels like a first draft. It feels like they're just throwing stuff against the wall. I still enjoyed watching it, but it's just not as good as the first two.
Yeah.
You're right. All the conversations with the Cure. I mean, like Avengers Civil War is like the correct use of this premise, I think.
Yeah.
Is people out there have powers. We need a way to control them. X-Men has done great stuff with like the Sentinels, and we're herding all these people into camps, and like they've mapped it onto like very real historical events. And they took like the most magical way out, which is like a gun that takes your powers away. Like you get shot with a gun and all of a sudden you're a white guy. Like, what is this?
Dude, there's so many things. The gun, that's a whole beef in and of itself. That scene where Mystique gets shot. And first off, if they have these things that take away people's powers, why would the humans not just be using that on the mutants that are in there in the first place? Why would they be spending all this money with the extreme containment? That's wild. But then also I feel like it breaks Magneto's character a little bit because it makes him like too black and white in a weird way, where as soon as Mystique gets shot, she puts her life on the line. She doesn't know it's a cure bullet. She steps in front of a bullet, takes a bullet for Magneto because she is so aligned with his beliefs. He is her leader. She gets shot. It robs her of her power. The thing that Magneto truly believes in his heart makes mutants better than humans, makes mutants more deserving of like taking over the planet. And suddenly, instead of feeling incredibly betrayed by this, instead of feeling like deeply shocked and appalled and disgusted that this act was perpetrated on one of his compatriots, this person he's had relationship with for decades, he's like, well, sorry, you're off the team.
I honestly love that. I thought it was so cool. I was always like, dude, this guy's a badass. He's just like, we're done. It's over. You know, you cross the line. Everyone has boundaries, Kevin, in all the different relationships. You know, it's lying, it's cheating, it's whatever. Just be honest with me. Just stay a mutant. Like that's Magneto's boundary. And dude, she broke it, man. She wasn't faithful to that.
I was like,
she knew that was a deal breaker for him.
I was killing myself to try to figure out like what the analogy is. Like, what are they trying to say here? Like, what's the thing? Is it like there's some sort of a thing? Because so much of this does seem anchored in choice. Choice seems to be one of the big themes they wanted to work with here, right? Professor X took away Jean's choice to have the Phoenix side of herself manifest. He took away her, like, I don't know, her decision making in that way. Having the cure, most of the people are having the cure forced upon them. They're not being given a choice. So like I was like racking my brain. What is the choice that this aligns to that can be some sort of like a symbolism we can carry with us into day-to-day life that would make Magneto react that strongly? And I just like maybe voting for Trump. Like maybe that's the thing. Maybe she voted for Trump. Well, and she had some reason to do it. And he's like, no, you fucking voted for Trump. That's the only thing I can think of.
I don't know. What do you think about Professor X in this? Because I actually went back in the comics and I reread like the Dark Phoenix saga, and I reread some old X-Men comics. And in the comics, Professor X is a dick.
Yeah, dude.
He is not a cool guy. In the first two movies, he is presented as this like benevolent Santa Claus character who comes and makes your dreams come true, and then has to be like set aside because he'd be a deus ex machina to like any stories. Like they have to like cut him out, and then it becomes about like helping him or, you know, supporting this person that supported them. And in this movie, he just snaps, and it feels way out of left field in this movie. But man, looking back at the comics, Xavier loses his shit all the time. Scott, he's like, he gives them a mission. They're like, we don't want to do this. And he just starts yelling at them like they're ingrates. And like, Professor X is awful. I mean, he's very unlikable in the comics. But what did you think about his like heel turn in this movie? Did it come out of nowhere for you?
Honestly, I liked it. That was my thief for this movie. I've always loved that aspect of Professor X's character. And I think it's a really cool way to grow forward with these characters, where there's a lot of things we talked about, like Cyclops' leadership and how you see that evolve over the years. And one of the big things that was interesting in the X-Men comics coming out of the 90s and into the 2000s was this like larger canonical heel turn for Charles Xavier. So going beyond like him just being a dick earlier. And it was like year after year of us finding out that Charles had done worse and worse stuff and usually just erased people's memories of it. So like we find out that at one point in time, the original team of X-Men was captured on an island. And so Charles put together an entire second team of X-Men that went out onto this island and just got slaughtered, like absolutely butchered. And then he put together another additional team of X-Men, and those X-Men survived and became the X-Men team going forward, and had just erased that second team from history. Like that's one of my favorite stories they've done. Another one that was super fucked up was when we realized that the Danger Room is alive. And the entire time, like it's been sentient the whole time, and he's just been literally keeping it in the dark and like not nurturing the brain, just forcing it to project these realities so that he can train this generation of superheroes. And he's like lost himself in this greater good argument. So maybe me being a huge fan of shitty guy Charles Xavier got in the way of this, but like him locking away the Phoenix, specifically in this context, felt really good. Wolverine discovering it felt really good. And I did like the way Patrick Stewart as Professor X sold the line of like, you have no idea. Like, you have no idea, Logan, what I locked away. Because he can see what it wanted to do. He can see what that Phoenix personality wanted to do from inside her head. So that's super compelling to me. I dug it.
Yeah. That it's strange, man. The still the Wolverine Jean Grey relationship, very strange. Him telling Cyclops at the beginning, like, "Hey, man, we just have to move on." It's like, what's this we, Logan? What is this we? This is like my wife, basically, and you're just some guy who came in off the street and like creeped on her. Like we are not the same.
Yeah, it's like if you have a roommate that comes in and like sublets your apartment and just absolutely trashes like a beautiful coffee table that you had, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know, our coffee table's looking pretty rough." And it's like, "What do you mean our coffee table, dude?"
Dude, it's like if your friend's wife died and you went over there a week later and said, "I think we got to grow up, man."
Yeah, I do want to clarify too. In the coffee table analogy, I bring that up specifically because they are treating Jean like property the entire time.
That's true. I mean, she is a prop. She's just this thing. And I don't know what the more important story is. Is it the Dark Phoenix or is it this thing? And the Dark Phoenix, I get that because like in the comics, the Phoenix is this like external force that comes in and like possesses her body. And I like the idea a lot of making it a split personality of hers.
Yeah, same.
I think that's very interesting, but they don't explore that at all. And she just becomes this thing that follows Magneto around.
Yeah. I
don't get it. She kills Patrick Stewart. I don't know why Professor X needed to die necessarily. I did think it was hilarious that Patrick Stewart, Wolverine, and Storm are like rolling up the cul-de-sac, and Magneto just like walks into frame, and they're surprised to see him when he walks into frame. And it's like, we're just out in the open. There are clear sight lines all over this place. You didn't see the Juggernaut in the front yard hanging out. You're caught off guard because Magneto walked up to you. He had a whole street to walk up to you.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's just there's so many things like that are just like so silly. And it's just the first movies don't have anything in it as dumb as the dumb things in this movie.
No, different director too. It's Brett Ratner, who crushed the Rush Hour movies. But like, I think I do wonder what this would have been like under Bryan Singer. I think it would have been a tighter movie.
I think so, for sure. Do you have any like beefs for this? Like, what's your biggest beef for this movie?
I mean, the biggest thing, is like the lack of like inapplicable subtext for any of the fantastic elements that they're talking about. It robs it of any credibility, any depth when there's nothing past the shiny mutant element. But if I want to get specific, I thought the Danger Room scene at the beginning was the first like evidence that this was going to go downhill fast. Comparing that scene and how rad it could have been they're ostensibly getting attacked by a Sentinel, and we get to see the X-Men in the Danger Room operating together as a team. Comparing that to the opening of X-Men 2, where Nightcrawler alone is just finessing people in the White House, there's no reason a Nightcrawler solo scene should be cooler than all of the X-Men in the Danger Room fighting a Sentinel. The only cool part is Wolverine lighting a cigar off of a fire on top of a car, and I'm like, is the car... Hold on. How much of this is holographic? Is the cigar holographic? How did he light a real cigar off a holographic fire?
Yeah, because it is like all a hologram, but it's all hard holograms.
Yeah.
So like, do they have elemental properties as well?
Apparently. Weird. What about you? Any specific beats?
It's so weird. I do think what's funny about this, and I've been saying it the whole time with these movies, is why is Rogue an X-Men? Her power is so useless. So useless. Like Kitty Pryde is like pretty useless. Rogue is absolutely useless. She brings nothing to the table in a fighting situation. She isn't. And I do think it's incredibly funny in this that Storm, when Rogue's like, I might want to take the cure, is like, Storm's like, there's nothing wrong with us. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you can touch people. you can go make out with Wolverine whenever you want. And you're a god. You control the storms. You're Thor. Yeah, who wouldn't want to be Thor? Uh-huh. And Rogue wants to hold hands and she can't. And you can't wrap your mind around that? That's crazy. Like, I mean, as an adult, you should have some openness to the idea that people won't like doing that stuff.
Dude, that's the more interesting analogy right there. It's like, this is our financial system right now. Rogue is any of us who are like, hey, we should change the way taxes work in this country. And Storm is Jeff Bezos going, why would you ever want to change the taxation system in this beautiful country?
Storm's a boomer. Like, hey, we had it hard too.
Bootstraps, like, Rogue.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yes, my bootstraps create lightning bolts and I can fly, but yours are just as good. The ones that kill anyone you love. That's just as good. We're in the same boat. I don't get it. You have all the advantages I have. You have the same privilege that you have mutant privilege too.
Tim, I got a big question for you.
Sure.
Well, first, I got a thing that I want to drop on you, but I want to bounce this off to see if you loved it as much as I do. Is there a bigger thief in this movie than Kelsey fucking Grammer's the Beast?
Yeah. I actually made a list of all the thieves in this, and he is not on it for me.
No way.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't hate it. It's fine. I think my biggest beef is the effects in this movie. Look so bad, especially compared, like what you were saying with Nightcrawler. They made that one scene look so good. Then the Danger Room looks like shit. And you know what is the worst effect in the whole thing? Is Beast jumping off the roof of a building.
Oh, yeah.
The way he lands is insane. Colossus lands and it's so weird. And the way Beast fights is he's in a seated position, and somehow he rotates through the air rapidly in a seated position, and he grabs onto a pole and then in a seated position. And then when he punches people, it's like a play. He punches them like in theater when it's like a fight and they're clearly not fighting each other. They're just like fight dancing.
Yeah.
Like he is clawing at people and not making contact. It's some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. So yeah, I don't love Beast.
See, that's canonically who Beast is to me. I think he would fight like he's stage fighting.
Yeah. Beast, I got to say, of the X-Men, Beast never really did it for me. He's fine. He's just kind of a boring guy, and they made him blue to give him something to do. But Beast is pretty boring character, and Kelsey Grammer's fine. I don't know. I never really got into Cheers or Frasier.
Oh, you big Frasier head? Absolutely.
Yeah, never really cared as much.
They just found an actor who could be completely believable saying, "Oh, my stars and garters." And
yeah, he does say that.
Amazing.
It's corny as hell, but I did love it. It was very Beast. My biggest thief, I kind of started like writing down. I was trying to make a list of. I started this with like There's only one cool thing in this movie, and then I actually ended up listing like a dozen.
Oh, hit it.
But it was just like a handful. I'm like, this movie sucks except for Kitty Pryde running away from the Juggernaut. That's really cool. But the rest of the movie sucks except for like Iceman fighting Pyro and like getting all icy and hitting him in the head. But the rest of the movie sucks. But also like Wolverine versus the Spike guy. That honestly might be my favorite thing in this movie is him in the woods fighting this dude who's growing spikes out of his arm. Like that power is so dumb, but so cool. Yeah. And he is throwing them so hard and they are like Wolverine is pulling them out and there are like holes in his body. Dude. It looks awful. And then this guy and him trade blows. I don't know what this dude was thinking. Because he can't heal, but he is 100% down to stab and be stabbed to death by Wolverine. And he does it and it's cool. And it's like the most badass thing Wolverine does in this. And then all of a sudden Wolverine's doing backflips out of trees. Like, it's so stupid. But like Spike Guy was great. Spike Guy might be my favorite thing in this. Do you have like a thief? Do you have like a specific thing that like really makes it for you? Is it the Beast?
It is the Beast.
Your guy?
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer.
It's I like the Beast. I've always liked the Beast. I like Kelsey Grammer. I've always liked Kelsey Grammer. I was thrilled to see Kelsey Grammer come back as the Beast at the end of the Marvels. I was like, there was no world in which I thought we'd ever get more of him, and I was so happy.
If, we talked about setting boundaries earlier.
Sure.
About how Magneto's boundary is like you have to be a mutant. You have to stay a mutant. Mm-hmm. If your partner held hands with someone else and created a romantic ice skating ring for them, would that be a deal breaker for you? Or would you be like, what the fuck are you doing with her? Or would you just like, I don't know, run away, depower yourself for him and then come back and try and hold his hand?
I mean, if I were Rogue in that situation, I would have stolen Elliot Page's power. I would have just completely robbed Kitty Pryde's power. And like, you could do like Rogue could have made it look like an accident. Like they could have been in the field and Rogue could have been like, Kitty, give me your hand. I need your power. And then she just holds on too long. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I've never tried to steal Shadowcat's power before. Maybe they're just, allergic to my ability. Anyway, I can phase permanently now. And she's out of the picture.
All the relationships in this are so weird. Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey is crazy. And the fact that like there's somehow this like Kitty Pryde is somehow able to swoop in on Bobby is so funny. And then they end up together. Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
They've hooked up. So
and apparently one thing Rogue was cut out of Days of Future Past. Have you seen the Rogue cut?
No.
There's a Rogue cut of the movie. When we do Days of Future Past, we got to watch the Rogue cut.
Yeah. The secret cut I saw was Wolverine and Storm making out. Oh. Because we talked about previously, like there's a thing. And so Halle Berry came out and said that it was decided between her and Hugh Jackman that they had hooked up. And I was trying to figure out exactly what this was. I'm wondering if it happened before this movie. That's my it definitely by Days of Future Past, they've been a thing. I was wondering if they'd hooked up in X3 before X3 or not.
I bet he's just hanging around the mansion. Like,
yeah.
Just smaller.
But there's definitely tension there.
Oh, yeah.
And the best couple. They're the best couple for sure.
Well, speaking of couples, Tim, I have a question for you about X-Men chemistry, specifically.
Ooh.
Of all of the X-Men that you can think of, if you had to put together a team of X-Men, who would be on that team? And I want to say in advance, Wolverine is obviously on it. So, like, let's keep it tight. We can say we can keep the team to 6 total, including Wolverine. So, who are the 5 X-Men that you would put with Wolverine on this team?
6 total, including Wolverine. Oh, I guess I added too many. But I was thinking about this. Oh man, I guess there are too many. That's fine. I'll ditch.
Gotta whittle it down.
I have some like alternates, I guess, that I'm into. We got Wolverine, of course. Mm-hmm. I want some chemistry. I think like there's a lot of X-Men that are family, and I think none have a better place in my heart than Colossus and his little sister Magic. I want them both on the team. Illyana Rasputin. I think we have a giant guy who can go toe to toe with whoever the big bad is. We have his sister who can teleport them wherever they need to go.
Great move.
Also, she knows magic. So this is just already crushing things. Then I'm going Iceman. I think Iceman's just one of my favorites. It's the coolest power. He's like Omega level powerful if he wants to be. He's crazy. Then I'm going X-23.
I knew you would do this. I know you love X-23.
I love X-23. This is the only X-Men whose like solo comics I have sought out. I think X-23 is great. And I'm thinking if I get X-23, maybe I get the Honey Badger, who is her younger sister clone, who is just this little girl who goes around and murders people with her. And it's just so funny. God, like they're so good. There's one comic, like X-23 comic, where her and her younger sister, the Honey Badger, and Deadpool went and fought like zombies or something. And it's just one of the greatest things ever. And then, so I had some alternates, and this one was a little up in the air for me, but I think final member, I'm going with Emma Frost.
Oh, cool.
I think Emma Frost is cool. I think we need a telepath on the team.
You have to.
I think there's some chemistry wise. I think X-23 and Illyana Rasputin are going to get along. I think Wolverine and Colossus get along. We get the fastball special. I think Emma Frost and Wolverine and X-23 are going to have a weird thing. And I'm sure, and she has a weird thing with Iceman too, because at one point in the comic, she like brainwashed him, took over his body, and he just did like, and used his powers way better than he's ever used his powers before. So I think there's just a lot there. I wanted to say my alternates for two other reasons. Gambit, I was like, maybe Gambit can be on the team, maybe not. I like Gambit. He's a fun one. I was kind of within the Emma Frost spot. I was debating between, I think Emma Frost is a good combination of powers and a character. I think her character is very interesting. Former bad guy, now a good guy. She's dark. She's mysterious. She's still not always trustworthy, even though she pretty much is. She's great. She can read minds. She's very manipulative. She's a badass. I think one of my favorite characters, although weak power, is Kitty Pryde.
Yeah,
Shadowcat. She's so good. Her character in the comics is great. Honestly, even in the movies, she's great. I love Kitty Pryde. I feel like her powers are boring, and if I'm building a team, I'm not gonna include her in it. And then I feel the exact opposite way about Storm, where Storm has like the coolest powers, and I've always thought her character was pretty uninteresting. It's either she's claustrophobic, or she wants to water her plants, or she's really cool but has no powers. And all of those are kind of like not enough for me. And I feel like there's a thing where she should just be the strongest X-Men ever. Like she should be Omega level, and she's not for some reason. So I just find Storm weird in general. And it made sense going back and reading some issues why Halle Berry doesn't seem to have anything to do in these movies, is because I don't know what Storm does in the comics most of the time. I don't know. I think she's a very underutilized character, but Kevin, do you have a team lined up? You ready to go?
Yeah.
Got any thoughts on my list? Obviously it's perfect.
I love it. I was trying to predict who to put on there. For a second, I thought maybe you just go all Wolverine clones, because I knew that you were going to put Laura on there. And then I was like, oh yeah, he could do, I know you love Honey Badger. I was like, you could do Daken and like Sabretooth and just round out a team of all Wolverines.
I was thinking about Daken. I 100% thought about having X-23 Daken on there, but
God, that'd be funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have a name for your team? Did you come up with a good name for him?
I was thinking I thought there were going to be 7 of them, so I called them the Magnificent 7, which I then was like, oh, the Magnificent X-Men.
Oh,
I just feel like
that.
that's an adjective they just haven't used before, is magnificent, which I don't know if this team is magnificent, but I think there's a way to make it very, very flashy.
Oh, I love that. I love magnificent. Yeah, I dig it. Also, got some overlap because my number 1 pick, Shadowcat. I love Kitty Pryde. Like, Always been a big
she's not on my team,
fan.
but I'm a big fan of her as a character.
Yeah, I just appreciated the shout out because she was like my go-to. Astonishing X-Men's my favorite run, and like she was like the whole, I don't know, she was the audience surrogate there. It was great. So far we got Kitty and Logan, and that had me thinking like, you know, Logan trained Kitty. So maybe I just kind of round out this team with people that Logan has like, he's got good relationships with. So my next pick after that is another big favorite of mine, Armor, who I'm willing to bet we're going to see Armor in the relaunched X-Men movies, because it seems like Armor is one of the more popular like modern characters. They're doing a relaunch the Ultimate X-Men line, and Armor is like the main focus of it. So she has this like bubble armor that she manifests. It's this like translucent pink armor. It looks really cool because it's just this girl that's floating in the middle of this giant, like sometimes it looks like a mech suit, sometimes it just looks like a massive suit of armor. And when she has the armor up, she's shielded, but also she's super strong, so still get the fastball special. I love that we didn't talk about categories like that, but we did both make sure gotta have fastball special, gotta have a telepath.
Armor is just a fascinating character. I think her armor is also made up from like the spirits of her ancestors somehow.
Yeah, it's like memories.
So there's an arc where like her family is wiped out, and so she just hulks out and gets like insanely huge and just destroys people. Armor is a great character, and I think one of the most maybe the best new character they've come up with that wasn't just, you know, Wolverine, but a girl.
Yeah. In a long time.
Which X-23 is honestly way better than that. But, you know, she's Miles Morales. She's not, you know.
Yeah, she's not.
Ironheart or whatever.
Yeah. So I got Shadowcat Armor. I wanted to keep going there and be like, all right, cool. Let's go Psylocke. Because you got to have a telepath. And I like the fact like Psylocke and Logan have their own relationship. They've like fought some shit together overseas. And I like a good international angle on an X-Men team. Like I like when they go overseas and like wade into conflicts in other countries when, you know, should they be? Do they have the right to do this? Who knows? They're just settling vendettas in different countries. So yeah, we got Psylocke in there. Just another one that I really love, Bishop. Big Bishop guy. Bishop is cool as hell.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really dig him.
That's
Extreme
cool.
X-Men was a great comic series, and Bishop was like one of the core guys on that.
But he's a guy that looks like Cable for me, where I'm like, I wish they used their powers more.
Sure. He's kind of weird.
Seems like they both just use guns.
Well, he absorbs energy, like he absorbs kinetic energy from people attacking him, and then he can redirect it through like projectiles. So one of my favorite things, the thing that sold me on him when I was younger, is they needed to like knock down a whole building, and people were like, oh, how are we going to do it? And he's like, I got this. I've been taking shots all day. And he holds up this giant gun and fires just a hilariously big beam of energy out of it because he can redirect stuff. I love that. It's so cool.
Huh. I guess I never realized that. I thought it was always like out of his hands or something, but
that is cool. But yeah. So I'm thinking like, all right, you always need a reformed villain on an X-Men team just to keep things interesting. You know, are they going to go crazy? Are you going to be able to rein him in? In this case, we have a lot of people. We have Armor in there who's younger. So I'm thinking maybe we get another younger person in there. We get a trainee thing. Maybe we pick somebody that they really need to keep an eye on and make sure that they're giving you good examples to. I'm thinking Kid Apocalypse. Evan Sabanur. This is the villain Apocalypse reborn as like, you know, a teen boy. And he has Apocalypse's powers, but they're coming one by one. So I love the idea that like this is like an incredibly powerful kid that they're just kind of trying to train and take under their wing. So this is a team again. I love an international angle, like people going overseas to different countries and doing a lot of questionably legal stuff over there. So I'm going to say the Extractionists is what I'm thinking.
That's good. That's a fun team. I'm not sure exactly why, because it is it feels kind of hacky. They do it a ton, but the kid version of anybody, I kind of want to see.
Yeah. You were a Teen Titans guy too, right?
Yeah, I like Teen Titans. Teen Titans is great, but it's different. It's not like Anakin Skywalker where we just get a prequel of them. Mm-hmm. There's a thing in comics all the time where it's like a younger version of them from an alternate reality shows up in our universe. and you are now getting to see them grow up and become a completely different person.
Yeah.
And that plot I'm always into. I mean, it's one of the reasons I like X-23 is like she is kind of Wolverine, but also a completely different tangent. And so we're basically seeing like we're playing What If. I mean, it's like Marvel What Ifs where you just go in and you tweak something like, yeah, what if Apocalypse was raised by the X-Men and all of a sudden we've got like a whole thing. I love that idea, but also we can just rage out at moments, you know, and like really crush. You got like an ace in the hole, and I respect that.
Hell yeah, dude. You know what? Let's open that up. Let's make that the thing for listeners. Listeners, who would be on your X-Men team? Let us know. We'll rank them. If you send us who would be in your X-Men team, we will rate and rank your teams. Send us an email, nerdy430@gmail.com. We'll read it in our next mailbag episode. Tim, any closing thoughts on X-Men The Last Stand?
Any closing thoughts? Kevin, in chess, the pawns go first. Honestly, maybe my favorite line in this. There's still banger lines in this, you know, but there are some really embarrassing ones. You know, they said Wolverine at one point says, "We are holding this line." Very embarrassing. I feel like the end is bad, but Wolverine walking towards Jean Grey while the skin is being ripped off of his body.
So cool.
Is cool. It's wasted on this, but those are the kinds of things Wolverine does in the comics where he's like, you see his skeleton and he keeps going. And that's the kind of stuff I want to see in Wolverine going forward. Or if we see him in Deadpool, I hope we see some like just horrible burns, you know, the clothes burned off his body. Like I want to see him just like really rocked. And that's what makes him cool. And they did it in this a little bit. So that was nice. Kevin, any other thoughts?
No, that's all I got. There's only so bad it can be. It's an X-Men movie. We will be back here again next week. Till then, stay nerdy, everybody.
Bye. Stay nerdy. Bye.